I'm in a forest of sorts and wanted to update you guys on my caffeine situation and my nofap situation. A couple of you have been asking me about sharing my progress on that. So with caffeine, I am officially off all caffeine. I have been off all caffeine for 5 weeks and 2 days as of today, obviously. And I will go into how that has felt and how I've responded to that. And before that, I want to quickly talk about why I decided to quit caffeine. Some of you might be wondering, oi Alex, what mate, what you up to? Caffeine, coffee, it's a beautiful substance. It's keeps me awake, keeps me alert, keeps me focused. Couldn't live without my caffeine, my coffee. Yeah, I get that. I've been a coffee drinker for, the best part of 15 years, 2-3 cups a day without much relent. I've tried here and there to kind of half-heartedly quit over within the last couple of years. But it was only until 5 weeks ago that I properly cut coffee and all caffeine out. Now I'm just drinking herbal tea and, the blood of demons. That's all I'm drinking, a bit of water as well. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I've been also a tea drinker for longer than that, into my youth. Why quit caffeine? Numerous reasons. There are many contributing factors, and the more you learn about it, and the more you find out about how pretty crappy caffeine actually is to our bodies, the more obvious a solution, the more obvious a move it is to quit it. Now, I recommend, because I don't want to go into all the science of it, there are people better equipped to explain it than I, but I would recommend you read Caffeine Blues. Can't remember his name again, it's a difficult name to pronounce, but Caffeine Blues is a good primer on all the detrimental effects that caffeine has on us. And I know that it's tedious to hear this for many who are very attached to, the god's liqueur, so to speak, and many of you guys feel that you couldn't live without it in the mornings and that kind of stuff. I felt the same. I found that coffee was great for kind of giving me ideas and making me feel like I was being productive, and we'll get to that in a sec. But I decided to quit for numerous reasons. One of the reasons was I realized that it took me a long time to realize this, but I realized that I was becoming dependent on something. And as you know from previous videos and my interest in nofap and that kind of stuff, I'm not a fan of depending on external things for my own happiness and my own energy and my own creativity. It's very much in line with my pursuit for total self-reliance, but also for optimizing my performance, optimizing my energy, optimizing my creativity, and really to be totally free. We want to be minimizing as much as we can all of those external things, those stimulants, those dopamine hits, the things in the world around us, films, movies, whatever it is, things that we rely on and we end up relying on to feel a sense of control and happiness, which they are only false senses of that, because the true sense of control, the true happiness is already within you. So I didn't want to become too dependent on something else, and coffee I was realizing I was becoming dependent on. And if you drink coffee and you spend a couple of days off it, you'll realize how dependent you are on it, because it creates incredible withdrawal and a lack of motivation. So that alone says a lot about why caffeine is worth considering at least cutting down on, if it's having that much of a hold on us and creates these strong drug-like withdrawals when we stop taking it. What does that mean? What does it say about the substance that we're ingesting? So not being dependent is one reason. Anxiety is another one. I found that I was still getting anxiety and still finding my anxiety, being lifted when I would be on coffee. I felt that my stress was increased. I felt that I was more aggressive and kind of found myself getting frustrated at things quickly. I didn't have much of a reference point because I hadn't spent much of my life without caffeine, but I always, you can sense that when you've had a couple of cups in, there's always that sort of, that there's something else that's making your teeth grit and winding you up. And having looked into what coffee does to you and the stress hormones and stuff that are released, you can make the connection. So I realized it wasn't so good for anxiety and stress. I sweat quite a lot, to be honest with you. to get to the the really beautiful details. So just walking about, if it's a warm day, I'll sweat quite a lot compared to other people, and it's always been a bit of a frustration for me. And I find that get quite sweaty back and that kind of thing, and it's not a massive deal, but I found that was getting on my nerves a bit. And I also saw it as an indication of something being off balance in my body. Why am I sweating when other people aren't really sweating, and what does that say about my sort of chemical hormonal balance in my body? There's something off whack. And so whenever I stopped drinking caffeine, and I had tried this in the past, little tests, I found that improved the situation. I would sweat a lot less. I would sweat like a normal human being again. So that was another reason. And I have found that, yes, since I've quit caffeine, sweat has gone down. There are other contributing factors to sweat as well, like sugars and things like that, which I also am working on cutting down on. And also the sleep aspect as well. I had read a lot about how caffeine affects and inhibits and disrupts sleep. And obviously, for anyone who knows a little bit about sleep, you'll know that it's so. Getting a good night's sleep is really fundamental for general health and well-being. It's kind of the foundational piece, isn't it? And if we're having our sleep disrupted by whatever it is, we want to address that thing. We want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to encourage a good night's sleep and a proper natural sleep cycle. And I found that my sleep was being affected when I was drinking coffee. I would sometimes, very often, go to sleep and wake up after an hour and find myself kind of tossing and turning because there was still energy running through my body, and that was not a natural thing, and I didn't like that. So again, when you look at what kinds of things you can do to improve performance and lift your natural energy, then you're going to inevitably come to coffee as like, okay, well, what can I do to shift my life to improve my performance? Well, coffee will come up in that discussion because there's a lot to learn about it, and there's a lot to learn in terms of performance, and a lot to learn in terms of like what it does to your body to inhibit performance. And I learned a lot about that, and that's something that you can do in your own time as well. So a lot of reasons. There are probably more that I've missed around why I've quit. Also, I was intrigued to find out that actually, because of how caffeine works in inhibiting the signals your body is telling itself to be tired and to develop fatigue, that's kind of how it works. Like, it's when you take caffeine, you're blocking off the signals that your brain is receiving to be tired. So that's why you feel awake longer. But what's happening is that your fatigue is actually accumulating. The longer you drink caffeine, because you're not able to properly sleep off and rest as your body is indicating that you should do, because you're having all-nighters and you're working when you are actually tired, and you're awake when you're tired. You build up a kind of deficit of fatigue, and that's harming yourself. That's harming your body over time. And not only that, when you learn about what coffee does to you, you're not actually, everyone thinks that you're becoming more alert, more focused, and more energized, but you're not. You might initially, after when you first start drinking coffee, there might be there'll be a contrast from how it was before to how it is now, but over time you start to realize that you're not actually getting much benefit from it. And what coffee is really doing is it's prompting you to release stress hormones in your body that make it feel as though you've got more energy, but you're actually just more stressed. You're in fight or flight mode. And to be spending half of your day in fight or flight, and longer, because sometimes caffeine can have it actually stays in the blood, stays in the body for a lot longer than you might think. Well, look at the science. There are numbers, there are stats associated with it. So you're basically putting yourself in a stressed state, which it's not good for health, and it's a sort of false sense of being energized when you're actually kind of on the run the whole time, which is when you really look at what's happening there is you're limiting yourself. You're not using your full capacity, your full natural raw energy, because when when you're stressed, you're limiting yourself. You're in a kind of hunched, very, very one-dimensional psychology at that point. You know, when you're in a fight or flight, you're not able to open your mind enough. And there's a lot going on here in this conversation that should give you some clarity on why I've quit. There's a lot more that you can look into it on yourself. So that's where I'm at with the caffeine. I just wanted to bring a little bit more clarity to it. I'm going to be sharing more on why, you know, the reasons why one you might want to quit in a bit more detail in various articles coming up, and I'm going to be sharing a thread on Twitter. And if you want to catch up on those, make sure that you're following my newsletter at alexmathers.net/newsletter, and make sure you're following me on Twitter as well. I share updates on what I'm up to, and I share, you know, daily tidbits on, you know, wisdom and philosophy and that kind of stuff, and where I'm at with the caffeine stuff at I am Alex Mathers. That's the Twitter handle. So that's pretty much it on caffeine. So you can, gosh, it's already 10 minutes into this video. I appreciate you guys who've stuck around. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how it's been. And so I quit cold turkey, actually kind of cold turkey. I had kind of narrowed it down to just drinking tea for a week, just to kind of make the transition a bit easier into no caffeine entirely. And as expected, I was unmotivated. I felt flat. I wasn't interested particularly in my work, but I knew to expect this. I'd been watching Alex Becker's videos on caffeine, and I knew that he talked about how, like, for literally like 3 weeks, you're going to be feeling flat and unmotivated. So I went into it knowing that it would be like that, knowing that I wouldn't get much work done. So I spent 2 or 3 weeks basically doing no work and kind of relaxing and reading and that kind of stuff. I did expect to really wake up after the 3 weeks, but I have to admit that I still felt pretty unmotivated even after 3 weeks, which was really frustrating and really concerning. And, you know, I just didn't really feel that same kind of productive momentum that I had been feeling even when I was on coffee. So coffee certainly felt like it helped, because I was in that sort of fight or flight, and sometimes that can help prompt you into doing more work. And it wasn't really until about 3 days ago that I finally felt the sense of really being awake and alert and excited about my work again. Like, and it has been like that for a few days, and that's exciting. And obviously what's happened is it's just taken me a very long time to really get used to the new way, and get used to a new way of working, which isn't so much about pent up energy and like gritting your teeth work. It's more of a slow, kind of gentle approach. And this is what I was looking forward to. It's not about being on edge and being tense in your approach to life. It's a much more calmer approach. And when you're calm, mind tends to open up, and you tend to get all of those insights that you were always looking for when you drank coffee. So it takes a while. It might take some of you just a week. It depends on how much time you've spent drinking coffee in the past. And for me, I guess it was just long enough for it to take a really long time for me to get back into the normal swing. And it's really only just now, this last week, where I felt good again, and I feel like I'm burning on a really natural energy as opposed to a kind of fake energy. And that's really exciting, and I'm just keen to kind of explore more of what it's going to be like over the next few weeks. It's not even something that I'm that used to. It's a new approach. So that's cool. But yeah, it was really flat, really unmotivated for a very long time, and it does take quite some dedication. You have to come to expect that you're going to have to take some time off if you do quit. There are going to be withdrawals. I didn't experience particularly heavy physical withdrawals. It was just sort of flatness. I had a bit of headache in the first week, and yeah, just a little bit unmotivated. Some people might have stronger withdrawals, and I might recommend that you drink some caffeinated stuff that isn't as strong as coffee, as a kind of way to transition into less and less if you do go that way. But I'm realizing that this video is going on a bit, so I'm going to stop there on the caffeine. So on the nofap thing, really quickly, I haven't really got anything particularly exciting to share. My streaks haven't been very long, but I have been keeping fapping to a minimum, so I'm very happy with that. And I think if you're looking to compare your numbers to mine and always have like how many days have you accrued and how long are your streaks, I think it's an okay way to look at it when you're first starting out in trying to reduce this bad habit. But I think overall, I don't know how helpful it is to continually be bringing up the numbers. You know, I think that adds an extra layer of unnecessary pressure to the whole thing. And I think what's key is as long as you're focused on living a more conscious life, a life where you're not in your head so much, a life where when we're in our heads, we tend to fall into bad habits. And I think it's just about bringing a conscious approach to not just nofap but everything, you know, including the caffeine stuff as well. It's more about how clear can I be living in life, how positive can I approach life. I know that it sounds a little bit wishy-washy, but I don't know how valuable it is for me to keep sharing my numbers, you know. To be totally honest, I do not see myself as someone who is going to hold 300-day long streaks. You know, I'm not Superman. I think it's about allowing us to make mistakes here and there. I think that's part of the process, as long as you're doing less and less of it. So the numbers is potentially a helpful way to kind of keep yourself motivated when you're doing like a solid initial streak. But you know, I've been talking about this stuff for years, and I don't really see the need anymore to kind of sit here and keep you guys updated on something, especially when I'm not one of the very best at keeping super long streaks. You know, I'm more about the attitude, I'm more about the philosophy behind it, I'm more about consciousness and maintaining as good health as you can. So I'm open for discussion on this below, but I hope you didn't come here hoping that I would tell you that I've been doing this for like 100 days straight, hard mode. It might happen, but it's not for this video. Anyway, I haven't really got a huge amount else to say. Hopefully that was a helpful update on where I'm at. And do feel free to share suggestions down below on what you'd like to hear from me more on. And make sure you guys are following and subscribed, and I appreciate you watching. Take care.